In this video, you'll see an onboard hot lap with some basic references and cues to look out for, and then for those looking to broaden their knowledge even further, I'll take you on a complete track walk where we'll discover all the intricacies and nuances of the circuit and car combination, as well as how to extract the most out of your time on the track. On the screen now are some timestamps for if you want to skip to a different part of the video. They are split by each individual corner of the circuit that I'll cover. So without further ado, let's begin with the onboard hot lap video. So a hot lap at Nurburgring GP circuit in the Mercedes AMG GT3 on medium tyres. So heading into turn 1, I'm actually going to move across the middle of the track quite early, braking just before the 100 board, careful on the brakes, miss the curb and go out wide on the exit. Heading into turn 2, very late apex, coasting the car through, not going too wide on the exit and into the Mercedes arena, braking in the middle of the track using a little bit of the curb, waiting for the car to straighten up, a little bit of the curb again, don't use too much runoff but you can use the track that's there. Now heading into turns 6 and 7, sacrifice the first corner for the benefit of the second, braking, using the camber of the curb available, then into Ford Curver, late apex, miss the curb, early on the power on the way out. Now coming into turn 8, the long hairpin of Dunlop Curver, braking just on the concrete, then stay into the middle of the track, late apex, very early on the power on the way out. Now into Schumacher S, mounting the curb on the entry, just a slight lift onto the curb, miss the gravel on the inside. Now into Kumar Curver, using the concrete that's available, braking just before the 100, not going all the way out wide, setting us up for bit curver, miss the curb and early on the power on the way out. Flat out corner of Hatzenbeck-Borgen, missing the curb on the inside. Now into turn 14 and 15, Fiedel, just before the 100 board, braking, abusing the first curb, abusing the second curb, then into Coca-Cola Curver as we come into the final corner, late apex, missing the curb, early on the throttle, and there's your hot lap of Nurburgring GP. So just a quick note before we get onto the track walk circuit guide section of the video. This is a ARC Season 5 lap guide, which means you've got to be aware of the fact that qualifying has no tyres and fuel, and then in the race you've got two different compounds of the tyre, the medium and soft tyre, as well as depleting fuel levels. So you're constantly going to be battling differing levels of grip, differing braking points, differing turning speeds, minimum apex speeds, etc, etc. So just keep that in the back of the mind and you'll be fine. So coming into turn 1, a lot of people will stay right to the outside, but I'm going to turn in very early. I'm going to turn to the middle of the track and we're going to just meet the pit outline, and I'm going to prove why in quite a complicated fashion. And if you don't want to see that, then there'll be a timestamp on the screen for you to skip to now, because it does get quite complicated. So this is a top-down view of turn 1, as you would see it coming into turn 1, or maybe just a little bit above for demonstration purposes. This red line represents the racing line that you're going to be taking during the braking phase. So you're going to start braking at the beginning of the red line closest towards us, and ending your braking at the end of the line. And we're just going to say that's 100 meters, just to put a number on it. It might be a bit out, but we're just going to say that's about 100 meters. This green line is what I'm proposing that you try out, and I'm going to show you why with some mathematics. Pythagoras Theorem, if you know about this, a squared plus b squared equals c squared, it's how we find the side of a right angled triangle. Now here we can see that the red line and the green line form two sides of a triangle, and so the red line is where people would normally brake, so 100 100 meters, that's just the number we put on it. The green line is the shortest side, and that's just going to be about half the width of the track because we're about halfway over as we enter the braking phase. So I've just put that a racetrack's about 15, 16, maybe up to 20 meters in width. So I've just said that's 7 meters roughly. So that's about 4 or 5 car lengths potentially. And we're looking to find the side C because that's going to be our diagonal braking zone. So we put a squared plus b squared equals c squared, put those numbers in, and we get 100 squared plus 7 squared equals c squared, or root 100 squared plus 7 squared equals c, and c comes out to be 102.24. And this is significant because we've got one line that's 100 meters that we could brake in, and one line that's 2 and a bit meters longer, which is about half a car length, 2 and a bit meters. And this purple line represents where we would brake at the start of the red line. So we'd brake at about that point. But because we've now got a distance that's longer in the green line, we can brake 2 and a bit meters later. Half a car length later potentially, or a tiny bit of a car length later. And this is significant because a quarter of a car length, a half a car length, is 4 or 5 hundredths of a second, a quarter of a tenth, half a tenth of a second, potentially, if you get it right in certain corners. It might be more, it might be less, but they add up over a distance of a race, over a distance of a lap, over one qualifying lap. If you can find 1/100th of a second, half a hundredths of a second in every corner, that's 2 or 3 tenths that you've got over one lap. And this race is probably going to have, what, I don't know, maybe 26, 27 laps. That's going to be easily 5 or 6 seconds over the course of a distance just by braking a quarter of a car length later. It's quite mad, but these are the margins that the top guys find. This is something you can try out. If it doesn't work for you, you don't have to do it, but it has been shown that it can be faster. So, braking at the shift in the concrete and the grass, so just this point right here, between the 150 and the 100 board. Again, braking on the diagonal, or you can brake at the edge of the track if you feel more comfortable doing that. Coming off the brakes progressively, and then because this is such a downhill corner, I like to just put a little bit of throttle on, just that much, while I go down, rather than coasting, because that will lift the nose of the car up if you're putting the throttle on, which means the front of the car will not hit the floor, hit the concrete, hit the track on such a steep elevation change. And if it hits the floor, you'll understeer. So just be a bit mindful of that. That's something you might want to try. Heading out, not necessarily too wide because we want to be over to the right hand side of the track. The mesh on the right hand side is where we're going to be turning in. Not really going to be braking at all. We're just going to be coming off the throttle. Very, very wide, very late apex. And then shifting out towards the outside of the track. This is probably the widest you're going to want to go. Just put the curb underneath your car, sort of like this. So 2 wheels on one side, 2 wheels on the other side. And that's going to be a running theme of this track. Get the curb underneath the car and you'll be grand. Coming into the Mercedes arena, you're going to be looking at this lamppost on the left-hand side. That's going to be your braking reference. So you want to come off the Astro, off the curb probably as well, and then when this light post goes out of view, like so, that's when you're going to brake. But you're not going to stay over to the side of the track, you're going to be coming over to the middle, braking a straight line in the middle. And this is where your trail braking's got to be good, because you want to ease off the brakes just ever so slowly. Then you can come for a late apex. This point here is where your car's going to want to oversteer, because you're going from a low grip part of the track to a higher grip part of the track, and you're trying to put the throttle on while you're still turning, which is the trap that many people fall into. And what they do is they oversteer, and that happens, and they can't get the next corner right. So just be very, very careful on the power there. Wait till the car's straightened up for you to put the power on. Then again here, put the curb underneath your car, like so. And then we're not going to be going too wide. You can definitely abuse the extra part of the track, but I would say don't go wide onto this dark green Astro. So wait until this dark green Astro has passed, and then go out wide. And this is probably the widest you're going to want to go out. Any less and you lose time, any more and you lose time, and any more and you get dirty tyres anyway, and you might drift out onto the grass. So coming down into turn 6, we're going to be braking just on the edge of this white line here, where the GPD track curves off to the right. So where the left hand side of the GPD track meets the right hand side of the GP track. Then we're going to notice that the turn is cambered quite a lot, so we can use that to our help, to our assistance. Stay off the curb because that's oppositely cambered to the track, so you'll just understeer. So just in like this, and then what we're going to be wanting to do is sacrifice the first corner here for the benefit of the second. And the reason that is because there's a very long straight after the second turn, and you want to get the second turn optimized so you can go carry loads of speed onto that succeeding straight. So we're going to sacrifice this first corner because there's no straight after it, and to do that we're only going to go out about halfway wide. We're not going to go out all the way to the edge. Heading over to the left, the start of this white curb on the right hand side is where we're going to braking in a straight line on the diagonal across the track. Start to turn in about where the gravel is, and then we're going to miss the curb. But this turn is now cambered the opposite way to where turn 6 was. So this is forward curve, and it's cambered with the right hand side down rather than turn 6, which is the left hand side down. And this is another reason why you want to get all the way over to the right and all the way over to the left, sorry, after the first turn, after turn 6, because at some point, while this turn is left-hand cambered and forward curver is right-hand cambered, there's going to be a point between the two corners where the camber has to go one way, back to neutral, back to the other way, and that's going to cause you to understeer. And that's about here, just as you want to brake, just as you want to actually turn the other way to get over to the left-hand side of the track. So that's why we stay tight into turn 7, out of turn 6 and out into turn 7. So we're going to miss the curb, and we can be very, very early on the throttle, upshift early to rotate the car, use all the curb available. And then into Dunlop Curver, we're going to be looking for this piece of concrete on the left hand side. This piece of concrete right here as I overshoot my braking. So the braking reference is at the start of this concrete. I would probably go a little bit after, but the main thing is the entry to the turn isn't straight, and we know that we can get the most grip when we're braking in a straight line. If we're having to turn a little bit, we're losing some of the grip of the tyres. So what we can do is just cut straight across this concrete. It has enough grip, but it means we can brake in a straight line, and that's essential because we've got more grip into the corner. Dunlop Curver is a weird corner because it's got about 3 or 4 different ways of taking it, and neither one is better or worse than the other. You could take a double apex, so go in early, out wide, and then apex very late. You could take a generally late apex, which means you can brake later, or you can just stay really tight towards the inside. I would probably, because I like to brake late, I would probably go into the turn with a late apex. So I would go into the turn like this, and again this turn's cambered, so you can use that to your advantage, and then I would late apex and use the curb on the way out. Schumacher S, what we're going to do is, again, plant the curb underneath the car. So we're going to follow this grey concrete Astro, goes out, we're going to follow it, go up onto the curb, and then turn in. And again, this curb, you either want to stay fully off it or go fully on it. I bet you can hear my force feedback. Loving what I'm doing at the moment. So you want to be fully off it or fully on it. You don't want to be like this, because that's going to put your car at a weird sort of angle and a weird sort of roll, which is just going to understeer your car. Then make all the use of the green Astro that you've got available. You can just cut across this gravel here, and then again use the Astro on the outside, because you can make a straighter line out of that corner. So this turn, enter onto the concrete, so you can put the white line underneath your car, and then at some point between the 100 board and between the start of the concrete is where we're going to be braking. Again, this is probably one of the hardest corners, so again, just make sure you know what tyres you're on, know what session you're in, know what fuel you're at, and you'll be fine. Using the green Astro on the entry, and again, running theme, put the curb underneath the car, and you'll be fine. This is another situation like the Ford Curver, where you have to sacrifice the first corner for the benefit of the second, because there's a long straight after the second. So not going out too wide. Again, another reason why you don't want to go out wide here is because if you step onto that curb, it's basically an auto spin. It will just oversteer the car because you're trying to accelerate on a point with not much grip that's elevated, and that's not a very good mix. So we're not going to be going out wide, just about halfway, coming over to the left, sorry. Late apex, we're going to be missing the curb, we're just going to be coasting through here, just coasting, and then about here we're going to be looking at the apex, looking at the exit curb, making sure we've got the most amount of width we can get. Then here, looking all the way to the apex already, missing the curb, and then we're going to be looking now for the second board, the 100 board, and we're going to be braking just before it. So again, dependent on tyres, fuel, session, whatever, braking about here before the 100 board. If you were to look for any other braking reference, because the 100 board can be knocked over potentially if someone goes for an overtake or someone brakes late and goes off the track, they might wipe it out. So there's either just before the green and blue signs and posts on the left hand side, or there's a lovely bit of sort of gravelly type stone that's off colour on the inside that you can look for, which is right before the 100 board. So we're going to be looking towards the apex now, and we want to plant this. There's two parts to these curves. There's this first part which is completely flat, and then there's the second part which goes up, and then there's the green Astra. So same theory again, put the second part of the curb underneath the car, and I would say just put about that much throttle on throughout both of these corners, because that will just Keep the car nice and settled. And then same situation here. About here you're going to be looking towards the exit, because it's a difficult exit. Again, same story. Put the curb underneath the car and you'll be absolutely fine. Said we were looking very, very early because this exit is a bit weird because it keeps going, it keeps turning in, so you've got to come off the curb quite early. And here we're going to be looking at a couple of different references, because a lot of people think this corner doesn't have any references, when in fact it's got loads of references. You just have to be creative with where you look. So we're going to be looking all the way to the inside very early. I'm looking at those vans over there on the inside, and that's going to be my first braking reference that I could potentially use. So when they just eclipse my vision, there, and I brake there. Alternatively, we could brake at the orange board on orange end of the fence on the left hand side, but we're going to be braking very, very late as we can. We're looking now at the inside of the pit wall, just on the curb, late apex, and now I'm looking to the exit, so I'm already looking over there. The minute it comes into vision, I'm looking at it. Very early on the power, use all the astro that's there, get off the astro before the grass comes, and speeding out onto the main straight. And that's your circuit walk of Nurburgring GP. Good luck! If you found this video useful, then make sure to check out our other driving school lap guides. And if you want to become part of the action, don't forget to join the Discord server by visiting the link below.